Hi, I'm Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. On my show, I talk to people about how they live authentic lives and about how they help others connect to the essence of who they are. I would love to invite you to join my Facebook group, where we have a group of like-minded individuals committed to their spiritual growth and transformation. You can find us at liveauthentically.today/FB. I'm super excited to be launching my first book. It will be out in early 2020, and it's a spiritual journey through my personal growth and transformation and self-actualization, and contains all of the keys that you need to unlock the secrets of the universe so that you can create the reality that you desire. And on today's show, I'm very excited to have Marinella Yule with us. She's going to be talking to us about a number of different things, but most importantly, her world travels. I wanted to talk to her about her travels and her life experiences and how that has enriched her life, and her philosophy and how she's helping others to enrich their lives and step into lives they love as well. So thank you so much for joining me, Marinella. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. I love to start every show off with the same question. So regardless of a person's background, I love to start the show off with the same question. And that is, what does it mean to you to live authentically every day?
To me, to live authentically every day is to do what you want. It's to feel comfortable in every decision you make. A side philosophy I have is, if you are ashamed or don't want to say what you've done, then maybe you shouldn't have done it. So how I live is, I'm always open to saying to people what I've done, what am I doing. Like, I'm not ashamed. I just want the whole world to know. So to me, that is being proud of who you are and what you're doing.
I love that. And what was there a certain pivotal moment or certain point where you realized that you wanted to live a life of authenticity? Or has that always been part of who you are?
There was one moment in my life that I like pinpointing a lot as a turning point for myself in terms of living authentically. I guess it could be as well. When I was 16, I went to Sevilla, Spain for a month to study Spanish in a language school. I did go with my father, but we had different levels of Spanish. So I was in a different classroom all day than he was. And I was with older people, as in like 24-year-olds. So now that I'm older than 24, I find it kind of funny, but at 16, like, that 8-year difference is a lot. And being with different nationalities and different native languages that we're all speaking Spanish. And so when I went back to high school, I don't know, it really changed, and I became outgoing, and I knew I wanted to keep traveling and meeting all these different people. And I knew I wanted to kind of be like them, to like keep pursuing. I didn't want to like live in my own little groove. So I guess that particular point would be my turning point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great. I'd love to start off talking about just your philosophy on travel, because I know that travel, I'm a huge fan of travel as well, and I have not traveled to 40 plus countries or however many that you have, but I love travel. I love domestic travel, international travel, and I'd love to talk to you about your philosophy and how that has enriched your life. So if you can just talk a little bit about how travel became a huge part of who you are, and how it helps to enrich your life, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, in whatever capacity you want to talk about.
Yeah, so I was just fortunate to have two very traveling parents. So starting from a young age, we would always do like road trips or go to different countries or whatever. And then as I got older, I just wanted to keep experiencing new things. Mm-hmm. So I'm originally from California, but then I went to university in Boston. So completely other side of the country, and different cultural experience, even if it's within the United States. One big example is snow. So the culture with snow and shoveling and all these things, which I never had to experience before in California, in Southern California. So I don't know, I would always just take the opportunity to basically put myself outside my comfort zone, always learning and growing that way. But now it's come to the point where traveling is in my comfort zone and being settled is not, or it's outside my comfort zone. So that is very interesting for me, as I know, like, when people say, oh, like travel helps you get outside your comfort zone. But for me, moving to hostel and talking with people like that, I love it. It like gets me going. But then settling and paying rent every month and I don't know, doing the same metro commute, I'm like freaking out. I'm like, this isn't what I'm used to.
Yeah, okay. I know that you're a big proponent of solo travel. You talked about that a little bit in your write-up. And let's talk about that, because I know that that's, you know, traveling even with other people can be outside of people's comfort zones, but I think traveling solo is a whole new level. And I'm wondering if you can talk about that a little bit in terms of maybe what were some initial barriers, because I've traveled solo some, and it is just, it's an amazing opportunity to experience life from a completely different perspective than you would have experienced it the trip if you were traveling with someone. It's an opportunity to learn about yourself, self-discovery, et cetera. But there are definitely, at least for me, some barriers to overcoming that in the beginning. So can you talk, did you have any of those? Did you have any fears initially about traveling to international places by yourself?
Um, like self personal fears, not really. And I think part of it is because I started at a younger age. Like I took a gap year between high school and university at 18 and traveled by myself. And it is, I don't, studies kind of show that like the younger you are, the more courage and the more belief that you are invincible you have. So I think that was it. But in terms of like a global fear as a woman, you just kind of hear that like, oh, like traveling a woman, like it's dangerous and all this stuff. So I had that in my head, but I felt like it was society putting it there versus like my own internal fears.
Mhm.
So and then at this point, with all the experience, just picking up and going somewhere doesn't really bother me anymore. But like you said, there's a totally different experience between traveling with someone, traveling in a group, or going by yourself. And I learned different things for sure in those different situations. I just say travel alone because you never know when someone, if you're always waiting for someone to go, you might never go.
Right.
So for me, I once had a woman ask me on a bus, she was like, what, you're traveling by yourself? No one wanted to come with you? And it was such a strange question for me because I told her honestly, I was like, oh, I didn't even ask anyone to go.
Right.
It was like, well, I'm waiting for someone to go with me, but like she's not going. And so I understand the fear, but then at the same time, like if you really want to travel, like we got to take that step because it's going to be hard to coordinate schedules with work and everything. So
Right. Right. I love that philosophy. My philosophy is totally in line with that. You know, don't wait. Whatever it is you want, don't wait for it. Don't wait for someone to show up in your life. Don't wait for someone to ask you. Just don't wait. If it's something that you want to do and you feel passionate about it, do it. So I love that. What would you say? Do you have any advice for someone who says, you know what, I'd like to travel solo, but I'm nervous too? Well, do you have any advice for helping people overcome any fears?
just that you'll never actually really be alone. So I actually just wrote a little guest piece for another blog, and she was saying like the best places to travel. And so I mentioned Cambodia. And in my little piece on Cambodia, I said, yes, I entered Cambodia solo and I left Cambodia solo. But within my time there, I met so many cool people. I was there for like 10 days, 2 weeks. And I ended up traveling like a week with one particular woman and a couple days with another woman. So yes, I went solo and I left solo, but in that between time, I was with other people. So I guess for nervousness, just know that you will make friends and you will find other people, and it'll be fine. Yeah.
That's good. Do you have a favorite place that you find yourself going back to over and over?
I haven't really reached a repetitiveness yet. I have returned back to Spain, Argentina, and Alaska. I guess Spain and Argentina, I love Spanish. I mean, I like Chile and Peru and things too, but Spain, it's the only Spanish speaking country in Europe. And then Argentina, it just has this beautiful mixture of South American, modern, but that old European And then Alaska, the beauty of the nature and like no civilization type thing. So those three are the ones that I kind of keep going back to the most.
Mm-hmm. What's next? I mean, I know you travel to so many different places, but how do you determine can you walk me through your thought process in terms of determining what international location you'd like to travel to next? Because I know that there's such great variety in so many different cultures and religions, et cetera, cuisines. How do you decide how you'll choose from the menu of different international locations?
Yeah, I was actually planning on writing something for my blog about this. I don't really have a particular idea or plan. I just kind of pick something and then go with it. So, for example, I was living in Prague, Czech Republic, and my visa was running out and everything. And so I was like, okay, where do I go next? I don't want to go home yet to America. And I was like, well, I have family in the Philippines, so why not go there? And in the process of looking at flights and stuff, I found out that going to China and traveling around and Hong Kong was cheaper than going to the Philippines, was cheaper than a direct flight to the Philippines from Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, like that's how I chose my next destination after Europe was China because of just the situation of traveling and layovers and all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
And then same with Montreal, how I picked it. I was like, well, where can I go that I don't need a visa? I'm a Canadian as well.
Okay.
So where can I go? I don't need a visa that I can get a cultural, like different cultural experience and possibly learn a language. Well, that's Quebec. So there's some things I have criteria for, like Montreal, and then there's other things that I'm like, well, I know I want to get to X, Y, and Z location,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not picky on how I get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just a kind of you just sort of follow your spirit and see where you're being pulled to and balance your objectives and possible, any constraints or limitations, et cetera. One thing I wanted to touch on was I know that, obviously, some people are in situations where they say, I want to travel, but I'm not sure I have the budget to.
Mm-hmm.
And what advice do you give people? And how they, if they have the desire to travel, but they're trying to balance that with budgetary constraints. And what advice do you give people? Do you have any advice for giving people on, traveling on a budget, traveling kind of in a very financially savvy way?
Yeah, no, there's different travel styles for sure. My own travel style, I'm pretty budget conscious. I know it's not for everyone, but so I stay at hostels where you share rooms and such, or I couch surf, which is a program that you can stay in someone's home for free. I mean, it is also suggested, you buy them beer or you bring them cookies from your home country type of thing, but there's no actual monetary exchange. And then you get that cultural experience as well. I take buses. Sometimes I do those car sharing options where they say well, I'm driving from Montreal to Boston and you can come along with me, just pay half the gas or something, which is still cheaper than a bus ticket. And for food, I don't really eat out as much, which in Italy is very hard because the food there is delicious. But yeah, so maybe I'll just eat out every couple days and make my own food in the hostel. So sandwiches or pastas, one of the cheaper things you can make.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also programs like Workaway, which I did in Belgrade, Serbia, which I worked in a hostel and they gave me free room and breakfast every day I was there. And so I just had to fold sheets. So for an hour, and then I could spend the rest of the day in Serbia. And so that saved my housing costs for sure.
Oh, wow. Okay. So is there maybe a one-stop shop or somewhere people can go to find out about all of these resources? Because I know I haven't heard of a few different things that you had mentioned. And is there some place like I said, a one-stop shop, a website that can give people ideas for how they can travel on a budget?
I mean, there's my travel blog.
Tell me about that. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. So my travel blog is called myopenpassport.net. And so I have my own personal experiences on there, but also tips on traveling on a budget or couch surfing, my experience with couch surfing, my experience with Workaway. Also, I have done TEFL, which is teaching English as a foreign language. which helps to, if you want to stay, like in Prague, I was teaching English. And so that helps traveling and finances. Also, you can teach English online while you're traveling as well. So yeah, so I have all that information, my personal experience, as well as like generic, like 5 steps or 5 things to do type of list on the site. Yeah.
And so how do you, and thank you for sharing that, how do you document your, I mean, I'm sure there's many, many opportunities to take pictures during the day, and how do you balance? I know one of the struggles I have, or challenges that I have, or something that I try to achieve every single day, is balancing, wanting to document memories, whether whether I am on a vacation or not, or just living everyday life with my family and wanting to document, versus living in the moment. So if you can talk to me a little bit about that. I mean, how do you balance, obviously you're going through all these amazing places. You want to capture the memories, capture the moments, but how do you not let that overtake the experience to the point that you're missing out on the joy of just being in the moment?
Well, so I just take pictures and videos as I want, as I go about. I mean, I'm also not, I feel very embarrassed and get anxiety when I try to do those like picture perfect poses and having like the flowing dress and stuff. Those are beautiful. And I admire those who can take the time to do it, but I can't. I always wanted to be behind the camera, never in front. So, so that kind of cuts down, or it lengthens my time being in the moment, I guess. But in terms of writing for my blog, I always do it when I'm in the middle of actually transporting somewhere. So if I'm on an overnight bus or a metro from one side of the city to the other city or other side of the city, I'll like write it on my phone, take quick notes and things. And then when I'm actually on my computer, then I can flush it out. But I always try to do it when I'm not, like when there's nothing else I can do. So if I'm sitting in a plane or in a bus or middle of the night and I can't sleep type of thing.
Mm-hmm. That's a great time to do it, just so you're not missing out on anything that's in front of you.
Yeah.
I know that you went on a bike trip, right? You went on a bike trip with your dad?
Yes.
Right? Can you tell us about that? Tell us about how that came about, and just tell us about the whole expedition and, what you learned and what you saw. And just, I'd love to hear about that experience more, because I think I love experiences like that. It's super unique, super adventurous. Sometimes they have a degree of spontaneity, like, hey, let's just do this, why not, kind of thing. And kind of after this, maybe we can talk about your philosophy, because I love that whole like why not mentality. You and I are totally on the same page and speak the same language on that. So why don't we start off by telling me about how that trip came about, and just tell us whatever you'd like to share about it.
So the first trip we went on was across the United States from Virginia to Oregon. It was right after I graduated university. And we picked east to west, one, because that's how the United States was founded. But two, graduating in Boston, we were already on the East Coast anyways. But a lot of people do west to east. But anyways, I was actually, believe it or not, a big hater of bicycles. I knew how to ride a bike, but I don't know, I did not like it. I barely rode bikes, maybe for wine tours in Argentina or something. But yeah, absolutely hated bicycles. And so my dad kind of not pressured me, but he would ask me like once a week, once every couple days, like, are you sure you don't want to do this with me? Are you sure? And finally I texted him. I was like, all right. And I don't really know why I did it per se. I think because exactly I didn't have anything else. I was just graduating. I knew I wanted to travel. I didn't have a set plan. I didn't know where I wanted to go. So I was like, well, I mean, might as well do this. It's a completely different experience. I'll get to see a different side of the United States for sure. I got nowhere else to be. So it's kind of what I did. And then about a month or so before the trip, we bought my bike. Nowhere near prepared for the mileage. I think I did like 5 miles in total before the actual trip. And the trip took about 4,000 miles.
Oh my goodness.
So
wow.
couple weeks were a lot of tears for sure. And we didn't start correctly at the right timing for seasons. So it was quite hot in the south, humid, and the Appalachian Mountains they're very steep. They're short, but steep, and there's a lot of them consecutively. Unlike the Rockies, which they're long, but not so steep. So it will take, to go up one mountain, it takes longer than the Appalachian. But so, yeah, so those steepness, my body was not prepared for it. I mean, I'm a runner, but running and biking are two different muscle groups. So yeah, there was a lot of tears. My dad and I fought a lot for sure because he was, feeling it too. And then he has me, his baby girl, crying. So he's like, I can't do anything. But yeah, no, then we got into the middle. Kansas. Yes, we actually survived a tornado in Kansas. So I found that.
Did you really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Tell me about that experience.
It was my first tornado and hopefully my only. I just find it funny that it was in Kansas. But yeah, it was just, they said it was a tornado warning, but our host was like, no, they never come through Eureka. Like, it always go around, blah, blah, blah. Well, I guess we brought in the bad luck because the eye of the storm landed like 2 blocks away from our house. The power got turned off several hours before it actually hit. We were in the bathroom because I guess that's what you're supposed to do. And yeah, I was freaking out the whole time. My dad was a bit calm, but he grew up in Indiana, so I guess he was a bit more like familiar. But yeah, I was so freaking out, and I'm from California with earthquakes and wildfires, but the tornado was a very scary experience for me.
Oh, I'm sure that must have been harrowing. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
So you made it through that ordeal, and then you continued further west. So can you kind of document or chronicle the rest of your trip from that point to the West Coast, and then we'll circle back because I have a few other questions that have been prompted.
Yeah. So after the middle, so it was funny. So the Appalachians, it was like, I just want flat. I don't want mountains. I just want flat. And then we get to the middle, which is pretty flat. And then it's like, I want mountains. I can't deal with the flat anymore, especially with the wind pushing against you in different directions. So then we get to the Rockies and the mountains, but because they are quite tall, we started hitting colder weather that we weren't prepared for because we had so much heat leading up to it. We actually got rid of our sleeping bags prior. So then we get to the Rockies and we were quite cold, so we had to manage some blankets and different things like that. And then it was at that point that when I looked at my GPS, I screenshotted it, the map of the US with my little GPS pointer in like Montana or Idaho or something. And I was like, wow, like I actually bicycled. It didn't really hit me until that point that I bicycled across the states, and I was only like a month or a couple weeks away from seeing the Pacific Ocean.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was interesting because the route takes you through like secondary roads, back roads. So we didn't really see a lot of like big cities. It was small towns, countryside, different things like that. But once we hit Oregon, more or less, it was civilization, if you will, like lots of cars, lots of people. And that was a bit of a shock to the system. You go from these towns of maybe 100 people, like not much, to hundreds, thousands, and yeah, a car and a bicycle, it's scary how close they get to you. And as a bicyclist, I learned that, like, before as a driver, I would make room, but now I give them so much more room because even though it seems like a lot of space for the car, for a bicyclist, it's still quite close.
I'm sure. So how long did the entire trip take you from start to finish?
89 days.
89 days. Oh, wow. And I know you talked about some of the weather conditions, about it being super cold and et cetera. So were there any points during the trip where you just said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I'm just physically, emotionally, mentally exhausted?
I told myself that every day. But I also told myself that I wouldn't be able to live with myself, I guess, living authentically. I wouldn't be able to look at myself in the mirror if I didn't finish it, just because I was lazy or whatever word you would like to use. And so I was like, I have to finish it for my own self, for my own feeling of accomplishment. And I think that was, that's like a really big point. So I know some people do this. There's a lot of bicycles across the United States for like charities. But I think for me, I really enjoyed that I did it for myself rather than a charity. I mean, it's very honorable to do it for a charity, but this way I was the only one responsible for me. I was accountable to me. And at the end of the day, that's who you live with, right? Is yourself.
Right, right, exactly. And I love one of the terms that you just used. You said feeling of accomplishment. And this is one of the things I talk about all the time. And I've got all of these quotes that come to me. And one of my quotes is, find your deep-seated why and get it done. And I think that's the key is we have to dig really deep sometimes when we encounter challenging conditions in whatever endeavor we're undertaking, right? So it's anchoring on that feeling. Whether it's, I always say, to people who they're trying to lose weight or get healthy, it's not really about what size your jeans say. It's not really about the number on the scale, but it's about the feeling. And I literally just got like chills when something resonates with me from kind of universal consciousness, et cetera. I get like spiritual chills. And when you said feeling of accomplishment, I got that because it's all about the feeling. It's all about how do I want to feel? And that's what I always tell people is when they're totally strung out mentally, physically, emotionally, and they have to dig really deep, you have to really anchor on why am I doing this? And you wanted to feel accomplished. You wanted to do this for yourself. You would probably have a hard time being okay with, you know what, I decided to just throw in the towel in the middle of the trip, right? So you were anchoring on how you wanted to feel at the end. And that's what I always tell people. It's about the feeling. I mean, that's really kind of the deep seated thing that we're going after is that feeling. So congratulations on such a huge accomplishment. I think that's amazing. Would you do it again?
Well, so after completing the Trans-American Trail, I was like, I'm never doing it again. Like that was it. Like that was done once in a lifetime. But then a couple years later, I came back from China or like my time in Asia. And after being like gone from North America for about 2 years, and again, it was that same thing. Like, what am I going to do? I don't really have plans. Like, I don't really know 100% where I want to go next. And my dad was starting another bicycle trip from the top of Alaska down to Washington State. And he was like, come on, do it with me. And I was like, all right. So then, yes, we did that 2 years later, that trip. So now after completing that trip, I am not saying I won't do another one. In fact, because my father plans to can keep going all the way south to the bottom of Argentina, the most south you can go. And so my plan is to pick it up with him in Chile and bicycle from Chile all the way down south through Argentina. One, because I love Argentina, and two, I haven't really seen that part of Chile. So, yeah.
Wow. That sounds amazing. You have so many exciting things to look forward to. Just one more question about that trip is you mentioned the phrase, I actually didn't write it down, but you mentioned a trail, right? You said what was it called? A Trans-American Trail?
Yes, Trans-American Trail, yeah. It was created by the founder of this cycling organization called Adventure Cycling Association.
Okay.
And it originally was biked the centennial, or the bicentennial, 1976, I believe. And then ever since then, it just got more popular. And they have specific maps for it. And because it's so popular, there are people who have opened their homes or restaurants or churches even that say like cyclists can stay or cyclists can take showers or free food or this and that. So that was really cool to see like such a community around it. And there's also a race that happens every year who can bike it the fastest. It overlaps some of them a little bit, and like it took us 89 days, and some of them are taking like 7, 8, 9. Like they just don't stop biking across the United States. But the Alaska trip, we didn't have a map, like a map like that. We just had a normal like road map, which in Alaska there's not many roads anyway, so that's okay. It's not like you're gonna get lost, but yeah, so ACA, they have so many different bike route maps around North America.
So was it at all stressful navigating? I mean, because I know for me, sometimes if I go to places that I haven't been before, I just know that if I'm familiar with the place, my stress level is much lower than, if I'm familiar with the surroundings. Was there stress associated with, or did you ever second guess or doubt, are we going the right way? Are we making, are we heading in the right direction? Is there any
Uh,
like that were stressful?
Yeah, so yes, I get that too, especially when I'm traveling to a big city. I get very stressed about where to go. And I think part of it is it's just there's a lot going on. It's a big city, so a lot of people, a lot of moving, like metros and cars and all these things. Bicycling, since we were going through smaller towns, it wasn't as stressful because you can kind of see the whole town when you arrive. But there was a few times that we turned too soon perhaps, and then we biked for a mile and then we're like, ah, shit, so then we have to bike back, turn the way. So there was a few of those times, and it wasn't in terms of stressful in terms of mentally, it was just stressful or irritating just because another mile, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're biking thousands of miles, that extra mile is critical. So
Yeah, I'm sure. Um, what do you think are the three most valuable life experiences or things you learned about yourself during that trip that you can apply to experiences throughout the rest of your life? Not necessarily specific to bike riding, but to life in general.
One of the things I learned about myself, in terms you talked about the size of like your jeans and stuff. So I don't want to say as every young woman, but the average woman, like we all have kind of, or and men too, but insecurities with our bodies. We always see that like that model and the actresses and stuff. And even though I was running, there was always a thought of me that was like, well, if I ran more, if I ate healthier, that I can lose that weight or whatever. Well, after biking 4,000 miles, and I still had more or less the same look, I was like, this is the body I have. Like, it does fantastic things, and it doesn't really matter what I look like because I biked 4,000 miles across the United States. And then also seeing the scale, because muscle weighs more than fat, seeing the scale go up in number, which my dad teased me about only in the sense because his went down. And I was like, that's not fair. But I was like, okay, so obviously the scale doesn't matter. It's how you feel. Again, if you're comfortable with yourself, with your body. And so that was one big learning point for me, was just like, this is the body I have and it's awesome. The second point I learned was I can do anything. And I really believe so. I came to Montreal, work history, and then things happened, and I was like, I'm going to start my own business, marketing business. And I think a big reason I took that leap to do so was because of the biking trip, because I showed myself I am mentally capable, I am strong enough to handle it. And if it doesn't work out, well, that's fine, but I can try it. I tried this crazy thing, and so I can try this. So yeah, that was another big lesson I learned.
Congratulations. That's another huge accomplishment. And it's so true. It's always amazed me how, when we're pushed to our limits, either physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever it is, in a particular scenario, our capacity to take on future challenges is enhanced significantly. Because you can look back and say, I survived that. There were points where I didn't know how it was going to go on and I wanted to throw in the towel, but I dug really deep and I shattered my own limits, right? I shattered my own limitations, and it just helps you realize how much power you have within you. And I think experiences like this, experiences that cause us to dig really deep and keep pushing, help us realize how infinitely limitless we are and how much we can take on. And sometimes you're right, if we don't step outside that comfort zone, we never know, right? Because we just kind of sit in our, on our couch, metaphorically speaking, with a blanket and kind of just a nice book and stay in our comfort zone. But the excitement in life, the growth, et cetera, is when we step outside of our comfort zone. And one of the things I would love to hear you talk about, expound on some more, is your philosophy about, why not? Like that's kind of your like guiding principle, right? Your phrase, why not? Like, why not do something? So can you talk about that and maybe where that originated?
Yeah, it goes back to my father. I just grew up with him telling me there's always an excuse not to do something. So because it's easy, it's like, well, I can't do that because I have X, Y, and Z, or I can't do that because A, B, C. But like for the biking trip, I easily could have said, oh no, like I'm not a cyclist, or oh, it's a lot, like, no, I need to start my career. Like there's so many excuses I could have said. So we have to find that excuse to do something. And I guess that's kind of where why not came. Like if you like, why not do it? It's a bit hard to explain. Like I have it in my head, but to explain it out loud, uh, um, if you can't find the reason to do it, then that is the more the reason to do it. Um, yeah, I'm really struggling. Like I have it in me to like I know it, but
Yeah,
to
no, I do
explain
know
it's
what
so
you're saying.
hard.
I totally understand the sentiment and the spirit behind it, and I love that. And I think it's just, it's what an incredible gift that you had with your father instilling this in you from such a young age. And I think that that's just so important. You know, when we're kids, when we're in those formative years, we're impressionable, and and that's the time that these ideas and sentiments can be implanted in our subconscious. And so this is and always will be part of who you are, right? You'll always have that, like, you know what, let's just do this. Let's just, be spontaneous and live in the moment. And, let's just, try something that we haven't before, try a new life experience. So I love that. And that's just part of your unique, your uniqueness, your energy signature that you bring to the world. And I know that through your blog and through your publicity, you are inspiring others to do the same. And I think that's just so incredibly powerful. Um, so what's next for you, kind of, in whatever direction you want to talk about? If you want to talk about professionally, I know that you've got a number of different such an exciting, interesting life. I mean, what's next for you? You talked about your marketing company. What do you have your sights set on?
Yeah, so immediately it's just growing my business. I've learned a lot. I just started full time my own business entrepreneur in November of 2000.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I've learned so much, met so many awesome women, men, learned about myself, but also learned about business. So just keep growing like that. Also, I still teach English on the side, so I really enjoy being around students of all ages, particularly my little kids, just because I'm always learning from them. They might not think they're teaching me something because they just say, like, as 10-year-olds talk, but really, and it also helps because they're kind of the newer generation for trends. So it kind of helps with my marketing if they say something's quite popular. For example, last year I had a 13-year-old student tell me something about TikTok. Well, here we are where it's like this new booming thing. So
Right.
they definitely help with my marketing as well because I'm always like, okay, so what's the new trend? Like, let
Okay.
me know.
I know
Um,
it. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, and it was, so then after that, it's just right now in the winter ski season, skiing and skating as much as possible. Um, I have taken like some time off from skiing, not really by choice, just no opportunity to do so. But now that I'm settled and there's a ski mountain quite close, would like to ski some more and improve that.
Wow, that sounds exciting. You have so many exciting things coming up. Is there anything, before we close, is there anything else that you would like to share with our viewers or listeners that would help them to step into their authenticity, to help them to step into world travel, step outside their comfort zone? Is there anything, any kind of closing words that you would like to share?
Um, for world travel, it's just that I guess just have the mindset of being Forrest Gump. Um, they're like people in Spain or people in the Philippines are just like us. They just want to have a personal connection and to talk with people. I know I had a script writing teacher in university kind of call me a bit weird for being like Forrest Gump because I told her, I'm like, oh no, I talk to people on bus stops, and she's like, oh, normally people wouldn't do that, and I think that's just a step. Just channel your inner Forrest Gump and just start talking to people. And that can get you started. If you're nervous to go internationally, just kind of hit someone up in a cafe or coffee or bar in your own city and just start talking. Doesn't obviously have to be anything romantic or business or
Right.
anything. Just
Right.
compliment them on their shirt and
Right.
see where it goes.
Right. And I think that is a huge step. I was talking to somebody about this recently, and now I'm super comfortable. I'll just walk into a restaurant by myself, totally own it. But there was a point in time where I couldn't do that. I thought, well, if I walk in, everybody there will think that, I have no friends, or, no one wanted to come with me, or that I'm lonely. And I was worried about other people judging me. And now I enjoy it. I own it. I love to talk to people around me. I love to do it locally. I love to do it when I travel, because that's what life's about, right? Life's about the experiences. It's about the people. It's about the relationships. And like you said, like there's always somebody to connect with on some level, really. I mean, they're just always other people just wanting to experience life in the same way and connect with other people. And that's, I think, the most powerful thing we can do. When I travel, I like to see some sites, but for me, it's more about immersing myself in the culture and talking to people. And I feel, it's almost a little bittersweet sometimes. Like when I travel, I meet so many amazing people, and I want to keep in touch with all of them. And it's just not, I don't know if you've had that experience, but it's just not feasible, obviously, to keep in touch with everyone on a regular basis. But for me, there's almost like a touch of sadness, like, oh, but this is such an amazing person, and I wish I could just continue to be part of their life. And the great thing about that is those social media. So I exchange like Instagrams or whatever with people amazing people that I meet along the way. My daughter and I were in LA recently for her 16th birthday, and we're just talking to the valet guy, and he had he's kind of following his dream. He upped from we're Raleigh, North Carolina, and moved to Hollywood to pursue an acting career, and was just getting started, but literally doesn't really have a plan, just knows that he doesn't want to be in North Carolina. He wants to be in Hollywood pursuing his acting career. Like, I think that's amazing. That's like living authentically. That's, what, I know that where I am doesn't really work for me. I don't really have a plan. I'm just up and move, and I'm going to align myself closer and put myself in an environment that fosters my skills and talents and passions, and see where it takes me. So I love that mindset, that just get up and go. So I just meet so many amazing people, and I, like you, I talk to anybody and everybody who wants to talk to me. And that's what makes life so rich and full of so much depth. So I'm super excited for you. I'm definitely going to keep up on your travels and see where life takes you.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful that you have taken time out of your day to be on my show. And to our viewers and listeners, I would like to thank you also for taking time out. And please join us. I would love to have you join us in our Facebook community. You can find us at liveauthentically.today/FB and join our community of other like-minded people who are committed to growth and transformation and expanding their life. Also, stay tuned for information on my book launch, which will be coming out in just a couple of months. So thank you again, and I hope you all have a great day.